I remember when I first got the opportunity to go on a missions trip. It was July of 2010. It is there that I realized that God had called me on an extraordinary adventure and also called me into missions. In the book Introducing World Missions, the authors mentioned the term missionary call. How this call can actually be defective because many people do not feel as if they've been given this call. I agree with this point and realized that ultimately God was showing me the importance of discipleship and how this trip in Guatemala would affect the rest of my life. Not that I had to wait for some divine call. So in Guatemala, there is this orphanage that has 50 girls, and girls only, and the home is placed in Guatemala City, Guatemala. I first learned what short-term missions was through the 7-day experience. And now looking at this trip shaped my views for trips to come. I know God is doing great things through this home, and honestly, to this day, I will always pray for this ministry. However, I knew God did not call me to Prince of Peace only. Not only that, but after reading When Helping Hurts, I realized that Prince of Peace was not doing the best job of sustaining Guatemalans or the orphans themselves. I continued to go to Prince of Peace from 2010 to 2014. Each time I went, I created new relationships and I gained new learnings of how Americans can make a big impact on other countries. It was in September of 2015 that I realized it was time to pioneer new options and go somewhere outside of my comfort zone. This is when I decided to go to Nepal. My first Eastern experience, or experience outside of Guatemala, was in Kathmandu, Nepal. Now this trip was probably different than most, mainly because the earthquake that happened in Nepal in 2015. This trip took place in a 10-day span with my school. Now I could focus on the earthquake, though that would totally go against what God truly taught me during those 10 days. I learned faith, unchurched people's group, and the true works of God. Now faith. Even though I said I really wouldn't focus on it, I still am in a sense of where I know that God had His plans during this earthquake to not only change us as the group, but also for those in Nepal to learn the aspects of faith. We needed it. We were in times of desperate wandering, and it was only through faith that we were able to have a sense of peace. With that said comes my next point of bringing up unchurched people group. This is where I was able to realize that people are truly lost. I saw people lose hope because they thought their God was angry and done with them. God truly showed me how lost people are in this world. It was a gut-wrenching feeling, and I just feel as if the earthquake wasn't the scary feeling in the 10-day span, but more so it was knowing how lost people are. Which ultimately leads me to my next point of the true works of God. I would just say that I saw these great places of worship and the great structures of these gods that the Hindu people in Nepal worship. I watched all of those crumble down. I watched churches, Christian churches, rush in and start helping and spreading the word of God. I watched pastors training pastors and people helping out their community rather than us Americans taking control. It was these pastors and their churches spreading the word of God and helping their community. It was beautiful. Even through this destruction, God's light shines through, and that just shows His true works. Needless to say, this experience taught me a lot. However, it still wasn't enough for what the 6 months in Africa did to me. The preparation for Africa was a process all on its own. This was the first time that I really had to experience what it's like to raise a lot of funds in a limited amount of time. We didn't get accepted to the internship until late part of the summer. So we had from August till December to raise $9,000. Now this wasn't just $9,000 for me, but also for my fiance. So really, around $18,000 is what we had to raise. During this whole process, I had to learn the importance of prayer and also the importance of trusting others that say, hey, we will support you. It was a long process, but by December, we were able to raise everything to the full amount. So here comes January of 2016, and we're headed off to Fort Wayne. Now, during the Fort Wayne experience, we was able to basically get everything that we've been taught in school in 1 week. They taught us the methods of when helping hurts, as well as teaching us how to truly be with the people. It was through this experience and through this training that we were all as a team able to be prepared for Africa. Then following Fort Wayne, we went into New York. New York, it was freezing cold, and we worked with the Salvation Army. Now with the Salvation Army, I will say that I was more so impressed of how great of an organization and basically of a church the Salvation Army is. We were able to partner right beside them and support everything they're doing. It was just a really great experience to get us ready for South Africa. The thing about New York is that we were staying in Harlem at the Salvation Army there, and during those freezing weather moments, the snow was the biggest it's been since the 70s. So we got to help people. It was just a great experience. And then February 1st, we fly out on our 16-hour flight to South Africa. When we landed, so it was snowing in New York, we landed, and it's 90 degrees or 30 degrees Celsius in South Africa. When we first arrived there, first thing we do is we notice that our host family, or our host leader, is a white South African. I'll be honest with you, it really surprised me. So we stay there for a week, and he starts teaching us about the importance of spirituality. And not spirituality as in Christian spirituality, but more so of animism and how it makes a huge impact in the South African region. It blew me away, and this teaching was just it outdid what Fort Wayne did, in my opinion. Just having a kingdom mindset. We went through the book of Ephesians as a team. There's 11 of us, and then we got ready to go to our host family. Now, our host family was also white, and not only white, but they were very wealthy. And it was there that I got to experience what Experience Mission, the organization we were with, was doing. Through this organization, they were taking us to these homes, of these very wealthy homes that were very, very highly secure. You had to have thumbprint to get in. Once we did that, we got to see the organization we were going to work with down in South Africa, which is in a township, which is close enough to a slum. And so we went into the township, and we start working with this school. I got to teach with the third graders. And with those third graders, I had to eat what they were eating for lunch, what they ate for snacks. And it wasn't too bad until we had to eat the fish. That was not the fun experience of it all. But I got to see this kind of division that was between the white South Africans and the black South Africans. And, the apartheid had a lot to do with that. But what Experience Mission was doing through us was that we were that bridge of reconciliation. We got to see my host family start making hot dogs to take to the Saturday events that they had at the school for the whole community. We got to experience one of our team members' host sister, come along to school one day. It was just a really cool experience of watching how the reconciliation was Experience Mission's overall goal. And not only that, but to empower these teachers. We didn't come in and say, yeah, we're going to teach now. Instead, we came in and we started just supporting them and telling them, yeah, you're doing a great job as a teacher. Was it the methods I would do as a teacher? Absolutely not. But it was so great to see what they were doing. So after 6 weeks there is when we moved to Lesotho, which Lesotho was the hardest part of the whole 6 months. Right when we get there, it's a mountain kingdom, and the mountain kingdom was absolutely gorgeous. And when we get there, we were there for 3 days, and they were just kind of telling us things about, Lesotho, and the organization was called Growing Nations, which is an agricultural mission. And the big part of this experience is that they teach for 6 months Basotho people how to sustain in farming. It's a great method, and part of the schooling is that they have to host Americans for 2 weeks. So because the Easter Sunday was following that week, we had to just stay there at the organization for 3 days and then immediately go with the host family. Now, the thing about the host family is that there is absolutely no English background at all. I was separated from my entire group. Closest walk was about 20 minutes, and Alicia was at least a 7 to 8 hour walk away. So there was just no chance of seeing the team, really. So we spend this time with them. In the 2 weeks, I learned the dependence I need from God. I mean, there was no English at all spoken. And if there was, it was to a bare minimum. And the thing is I had to eat. I had to eat chicken guts. I had to bathe in a little bucket and boiling hot water. And I had to sleep with a stranger. It was a very, very almost horrific experience, but it was a godly experience. Because I didn't come in from my big hotel to help out, or I didn't come in and hand them a $20 bill. Instead, I come in and I'm doing exactly what they're doing and telling them, you guys are great. And I gotta be honest, out of the whole trip, and I haven't even got to Namibia yet, this trip was the most beneficial out of it all, because I learned that God works in such mysterious ways, and at the end of the day, it's between Him and I. And after the 2 weeks, we were still in Lesotho, and we did the farming, and it was tough. It was a lot of tough work, but those 2 weeks was the highlight of the entire trip. Then we go to Namibia. Now, Namibia is considered the desert country, and it is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And got to go to Swakopmund, Namibia. Now, Swakopmund is actually a very German town, so a lot of Germans were around. Our host family, we only got to see them on the weekends, and they were actually Afrikaans, so same as my South African family. And throughout the week, we would actually stay at a Dutch Reformed church, and we were just coming alongside the church and supporting everything that they were doing, as well as going to an orphanage and not giving our personal opinions, but the people of the church there in Swakopmund were the council of this orphanage, and so they helped make the decisions with a woman who started the orphanage. So it really helped me, coming from Prince of Peace, to see this African culture, Namibian culture, taking care of their orphans. And it was just a great, great experience. With our host family, we were able to see them and partner them in with the church as well as with the orphanage. And for the church, Dutch Reformed, we were actually able to lead some of their youth group nights, and it was just really impactful. And actually, the pastor there, I'm still in close communication with to this day. His name was Manas, and he was just great. So this whole 6-month experience ended on June 30th. And I gotta be honest, it was just one of those experiences that, it's a milestone. It's a turning point in your life. And I just gotta say that through it all, I was able to learn, the Experience mission taught us the 4 key principles of when helping hurts. And it was just a great, great experience. And learning that it's not about giving money or starting a great organization, but understanding that there's organizations already around the world that just need someone to come along with them and say, hey, we support you.